Okay, good morning everyone. It's Sunday, 30th of October 22. I'm here in Northwest Indiana, Lake County, Northwest Indiana. I'm clearly not from Northwest Indiana. Originally from England, raised in London, and I've bounced around a lot in my life, but short bio, I'm just a mother, not just a mother, I'm a mother, a wife, a middle-aged woman who's worried about the 20 pounds she's gained and the hair that's thinning on the top of her head. I'm not an extraordinary person, but I've been living here in the US now for over a decade, on and off, and I have a child who was born here. My husband's American. I have many reasons to want to see nothing but great things for this country, but I remember the last post that I ever made on Facebook was in 2018. This was kind of post the Trump era and the insanity and the division that I couldn't explain. Friends falling out, family falling out over a man, a politician, and all my life I've unfortunately been in and out of not necessarily politics, but involved in government somehow. I've been close to politicians, or certainly close enough to watch the operations of government and politics. And I've never really been impressed, and I've never been partisan, in that if you're in it, you understand that it's a racket. It's a racket, and it's a coordinated a game between two parties who have practically the same vision, which is to make sure that they remain in power. And if the opposition is in power, that they don't hurt the other party's interests. So I never understood the hatred all of a sudden for this man Trump, who the day before he announced he was running, he was a sweetheart of the media and Hollywood and the left and the blacks and the rappers, I guess. The black community. I'm not even sure. So this is how completely unaware I am of the way the world has changed, in that I now have to watch my language, and maybe I need to go to a camp to figure out what the correct language is before I get cancelled. But anyway, as a melanated female, I hope you can forgive me if I come across and say the wrong words that are not politically correct or woke enough for you, but I don't subscribe to the woke kingdom, and I may or may not trip up now and again, so I hope you'll forgive me. But anyway, here I am. It's Sunday morning, and the only reason I'm doing this, I don't know what you call this vlog, this video blog, is because I promised a friend that I would help her raise some questions about the way that the politics in this country work. I have an interest, like I said, in making sure that we have fair and transparent elections, because I see some really dangerous declines in this country which are going to affect my child sooner rather than later, and I may or may not be around to help protect her, because I also happen to be an older mother, and so I don't have the luxury of believing I'm going to be around long enough to see her come into adulthood and be able to defend herself in a country, honestly, that in some ways it scares me to see how people are just watching its demise happily. And those of us, people like me, perfectly pedestrian people like me, have been sitting back and politely watching its demise, and I don't think we can do that anymore. I think we have to do our bit. And it's bizarre. I cannot believe I'm sitting here in front of a camera. It seems so strange to me to be sitting and talking to an inanimate object. But if through this lens I can get through to some of you, Maybe I can look at myself in the mirror and say, at least I tried. So I have just a couple of questions. I really don't even know how this is going to come across, but I know that we're only a couple of weeks out from the elections, or just actually not even a couple of weeks, just a few days out from the elections, and people have been voting already for their candidates. They have this thing called early voting in this country. Now, I don't know whether we have early voting in the UK. I remember growing up, it was voting day, but this voting seems to go on for weeks and weeks, and I just don't understand why that is allowed to happen. I understand that it's about convenience, but wouldn't it be better if you really believed in convenience, but maximum security to make sure all votes are counted, that you would want one day with secure precincts that enable voting to happen? Anyway, if somebody could explain to me why this early voting, other than this convenience, which can be dealt with with other reasonable adjustments, like you could have a precinct in every neighborhood. Anyway, talk to me. Let me know why this early voting is a thing. And the reason I talk about early voting is because I was watching the Pennsylvania debate between the Democrat candidate Fetterman and the Republican candidate Mehmet Oz, and I was gobsmacked that any reasonable organization, political party would put up a candidate like that, least of all for his sake, because this is a man who had a massive stroke and is really clearly struggling with brain injury. And I don't understand how they felt that it was a reasonable and just thing to do to have that person be the voice of all the Democrats in Pennsylvania. But how many people had already voted because they're Democrats, already voted for Fetterman weeks and weeks before they finally actually got to see him on national TV debating his opponent? How many people now have buyer's remorse? And why is it that this is even allowed to happen before you even are able to vet your candidate? Because they enable this thing called early voting. So I just wanted to ask people out there, whether you're from Lake County, Indiana, or you're from Indiana, or wherever it is that you're watching this, does the convenience of early voting outweigh the security of your vote? And when I mean security, I mean the fact that, would you have cast that vote had you had the opportunity to really see, listen to, and vet this candidate for yourself? And are you sure that if you voted a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the day of counting, which I believe is on voting day, do you believe your vote is still going to be counted? Is it going to be lost somehow? Is it going to be discarded somehow? I don't know if we're allowed to talk about 2020 anymore, how we can be prevented as adults, as a free society, prevented from talking about certain subjects. I'll never understand, especially in a country like America, which is the other reason that I'm prepared to do these videos, just to see what sort of country am I actually living in, where we have to now watch our P's and Q's and what we say and the subjects that we are and are not allowed to talk about. If you question something, you're a denier, and a denier is something to be trashed and squished. And anyway, these are other subjects for another time. But for now, I just wanted to ask you, would you continue to vote early in future elections if you can see now that maybe your election has been massaged in some way? Your vote has been massaged and coerced in some way by people hiding the quality of the candidate that you're expected to vote for. And another thing that always made me wonder is, how is it that agencies are able to predict the outcome of a race through early voting, unless these early votes are transparent in some way? I don't know. I thought it was supposed to be an anonymous, secure vote until the day of counting. So if you could help educate me, please, I'd be really grateful. And if you could maybe let me know whether you would continue to support early voting, knowing that your early vote may have been cast for a candidate that's not even really fully functioning and couldn't represent you in the way that you wanted to be represented. It's a little longer than I wanted to make this video for, but forgive me. I'm a complete technophobe and tech Luddite. I feel I have a face for radio, so I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing in front of the camera. But yeah, if something resonates with you, if you could help me in some way figure this country out, I'd be most grateful. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.